Here's a picture of Evelyn, one of my many reborn dolls in my collection. Or is this the real Evelyn, one of my reborn dolls in my collection? I'll tell you guys this and how to spot which one is the real Evelyn and many other examples, as well as tell you guys all about a giveaway nomination we're doing coming up. Okay, so this first example, admittedly a little easy. I bet many of you guys could probably guess it was the image on the right that is the AI image, and the one on the left is a real picture of Evelyn. The only thing I did to the real version of Evelyn is I took the background out and I placed her in like a mock scene, if you will. But the doll itself is unchanged from the original. I did that because I wanted there to be a fair comparison to be able to tell. Now, people do masking and removing of background images of dolls all the time. The difference being, was the image generated, the core subject of it generated with AI, or was it a legitimate one? So here's how you can tell on this first image which one was actually the real Evelyn. Well, the one that had AI on it, you can tell because the arms and legs are much shinier. The AI made Evelyn's silicone look unusually glossy, almost plastic-like. You can also tell it's uneven from the left side to the right side, and if you look at the hands. The skin is overly smooth. Fine texture and natural tone variation have been softened quite a bit. That is also true with AI, as they tend to soften the image quite a bit and not have as much detail to it. The hands are simplified. The fingers lose some definition and look a bit more rounded. The dress pattern looks cleaner and more uniform. The fabric appears slightly too perfect compared to the real photo. The overall image feels more rendered. Lighting and textures are more polished and consistent than in a natural photograph. So that one's pretty easy. That one I bet many of you could probably actually have figured out on your own. The reason I wanted to bring this subject up is actually because I have been seeing so much chatter lately about groups that have been banning AI images, banning AI from being used in sales of dolls, and also just the idea of, if you take a doll, put AI around it, are you ruining the artistry around it? Are you losing some detail? And there's people on both sides of this argument. I will share what my take is here in just a little bit. But before I get into the next example, I want to remind you guys about the Little Livie nomination giveaway that we're doing. You have until July 27th to go to stronghandsrebordad.com/nominate. And I would love it if you could find someone that you know in your life that would be really well deserving of a reborn doll. I'm giving away my pre-loved Livie. She's an Ashton Drake doll. You can find out all the details on the website at stronghandsrebordad.com/nominate. It's open to anyone in the continental United States. And just to remind you guys, you do need to be 18 or older to nominate someone, but the person you're nominating does not have to be 18. They can be any age. But the restriction is for the continental United States is because of shipping costs. But in addition to Little Livie, you're also going to get a couple outfits. You're going to get an NLT Bible from me just because I love sharing the Word of God and His message. And I hope that in addition to Livie, it would help you bring comfort and meaning. And you'll also get a personal note handwritten from me. Want to give a special thanks, as always, to our panel who's going to help us decide. We have Raygun. She is an amazing collector. She's a really good friend of mine. We also have Bitty Bunny Reborn Nursery and Hippie Mama Reborn Nursery, who will also be helping in the selection. Again, you have until July 27th to get those nominations in. Again, stronghandsrebordad.com/nominate. Get your entries in as soon as possible, and I can't wait to read every one of them. We've gotten quite a few already, but we've definitely got room for more. So thank you again, and let's get on with the video. All right, you guys ready for example number 2? This is Penny, or is it? In real life, we're not going to get to compare, right? So take a good look at this image. Is it an AI generated doll, or is it the real photo? Okay, got that image in your mind? Now I'm going to swap it out. So we're going to pull Penny completely off, and now we're going to put in the other photo of Penny. Is this one AI generated? All right, now let's put them back together. All right, can you tell which one is the real Penny, my toddler doll that I love dearly, who, by the way, came from Bitty Bunny Reborn Nursery? Thank you, Kari, once again. All right, time's up. The AI image, the fake one, is the one on the left. That's right. That is the fake one. Could you tell? Well, let me help you out. Here are some ways that you could tell that this was an AI image. The hair is too neat. You notice that Penny has some flyaways on the real one that aren't very well represented in the AI image. It's very difficult for AI to get very fine details like flyaway hairs and things like that because they're so small and detailed. It oftentimes will skip over them. So the rooted hair loses some of its random flyaways, looks more uniform and arranged. Not the way I wanted the messy toddler hair look. So the face is also slightly idealized, meaning it's too perfect. Penny's cheeks and smile appear just a little bit fuller and more symmetrical than the real sculpt. So they're definitely more polished, more uniform because, again, AI, when it looks at a face and it's going to generate a face, it's using all the other references it has. And it may not have a reference for this specific doll in its database. It may not have ever seen a face quite like that. So it's trying to merge all the different examples that it has in with that one. All right. And also the skin is smoother, fine painted textures, subtle color variations, and softened by the AI. Again, it tends to soften details, not keep them visible. The clothing also has fewer natural wrinkles. The dress drops a bit too perfectly compared to the real photo. And the overall image just looks slightly too polished. You can always tell when something's been photo touched. We used to be able to tell if something had been photoshopped. It's much the same way that AI tries to do sometimes, depending on the model and the generated prompt that you give it. The textures and lighting are just too smooth and more uniform than in a natural photograph. All right, so did you get that one right? That one was harder. That's the medium hardness. Now, before I get to the last example, let me talk to you guys about my take on AI and where it should be used before we get to the final challenge. My take on it is this. If it's your doll and you're sharing it to a group like on Facebook or online and you want to add AI to it, like I did this one. This is from Easter where I put my Reborn with an Easter scene. I had a cross in the back, little Easter scenery and all that. You guys can see that on your screen. So I think that's fine to do because I'm not trying to represent my Reborn in any other way than how I wanted it to look to share, right? Now, where I differ and where I definitely don't like the idea of AI being used at all, except for small touches, like I said, removing the background, doing some masking, that kind of thing. I don't want anything touching the doll. And that's when you're trying to sell it. If you're trying to sell the doll, it needs to be your own photograph. And try not to use anything artificial. And it doesn't even have to be AI. Try not to do makeup lighting that might make the doll appear differently than how it's going to look in real life. If you change the skin tone of it to make it look better with a particular photograph, that may not be representative of how it's going to look in real life. And so the thing is that buyers want to know exactly the doll they're going to get. These are art pieces. So any change to the doll's physical look whatsoever is a little bit misrepresentative. Now, artists take a lot of time with lighting, setup, props, outfits to make their dolls look their absolute best. This is fine, but make sure it's not overly polished. You're going to be putting your doll in the most ideal lighting. So therefore, I think even as buyers, we need to take that as a grain of salt and understand that the doll may inherently look slightly different than what it does in these perfectly polished photos. I think it goes both ways. I think as a collector looking at artist work, when I'm looking for a doll, I want to imagine it looking how it's going to look in my display, whether it be a nursery type setting or on a shelf. I want more natural lighting. I don't like overly polished photography photos. You know, the kind where they really touch up and do these little things and the hair is like immaculate. Or one of the things that I have a pet peeve with, and I know a lot of people do, is if your doll's hair is rooted and you have to wet it down in order for it to look right, that's not going to be how it's normally going to look. It's going to be a little more frizzy and fly away. I don't like that. Show the doll's hair as it's going to look primarily. I don't hair root. Go talk to Kari with Bitty Bunny Reborn Nursery about hair rooting because she's an absolute queen at it. That woman is so good at hair rooting. I feel like I should have her on this episode talking about it rather than just my own words, but I'm speaking from my point of view on this when I'm shopping and when I'm looking at. I don't want to see a doll's hair wet just so it lays down perfect. If the doll's hair can't lay down perfect, or if it's not intended to, show it how it's intended to look. I think that's kind of the key takeaway. All right, now let's get on to the final example. This is my $2,000 Reborn doll, Sarah. You guys know her because she's the most realistic. And the more realistic a doll is naturally, the better the AI does. Before I show you the other photo, this is one of them. You don't know if it's real or not. I want to just say that I did change the model variations slightly. I intentionally used a lower grade model for the first photo, slightly up the settings for the moderate one, and I'm using a different model that is way more realistic, took way longer to generate to get this final comparison photo. And so I want you guys to see. Now I'll bring in the other doll. I know it looks like a mirror image, like I didn't actually swap the doll, but I did. One of these dolls is real, one of these dolls isn't, or at least it was AI generated. Can you tell which one was AI generated? This is really hard. I actually took both of the photos from the one model when I took the original and I put it into a different model and I had it guess if it could tell me which one of these two, now both on your screen, was the real one and which one was the AI one. And it actually got it wrong. It picked the wrong one. It picked the real one. So even the AI couldn't tell which one of these was the real one versus that. But I know I got bad eyesight here. So I did a little bit different comparison. Once I can nail down a couple examples for it to look at, here's how we could tell the difference. Again, this would be nearly impossible in real life. I just want to show you what's possible with AI imagery right now. So if you guess the one on the right, you are correct. That is the AI image. And here's how we can tell. The hair looks too perfect, although that's subjective because it almost looks identical to me. The rooted hair loses some of its random flyaways and individual strand detail. I think the color might be slightly different, but I'm splitting hairs. Get it? The skin is overly smooth. There's subtle mottling and tiny painted details that make Sarah look handcrafted or more softened, I think. It just loses a tiny bit, far less than the other examples, but still there's a little bit, but you have to really look. And this is where it gets so tricky with technology these days. The facial features are slightly idealized, meaning a little bit too, like the lips, the nose, the cheeks are all a little bit more symmetric and polished than the original. Also, again, we can look at the clothing. Wrinkles in clothing are one way to give it away. If the clothes look overly smooth and don't have any natural wrinkle to them where you expect, that's still something, even in 2026, that AI gets a little bit hard to replicate. It struggles a little bit with that. Also, I've seen it struggle with like a person holding another person in the hand and arm placement, but it's usually not a big deal unless someone is trying to sell like twins and they're put together and they try to generate that with AI. That would still be probably easier to tell. We can also tell because the clothing texture is simplified. The onesie obviously doesn't have some of its wrinkles. It appears more uniform. The overall image feels a bit too clean. The lighting textures and the details are all a bit too consistent, giving it a polished AI look rather than the tiny imperfections of a real photograph. So here's what I want to know. Which ones did you get right out of the three? Did you get them all right? Let me know in the comments below. I'm also wanting you guys to ask questions about AI images and things like that. I work in the AI space heavily. You guys may have saw my video about Megan. Well, I created an AI doll. I don't know what to call it anymore, called Nova. And I made a video that was uncanny. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. And so that's going to do it for this video. Remember, get those nominations in and nominate someone else. I'd love to hear your feedback. And I think next week, we're going to focus really hard on getting people to nominate someone for the Little Livie giveaway. I really want to give it to a special home. So if you know someone, please get them nominated. StrongHandsRebornDad.com, nominate. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was a fun exercise for you, and I hope you learned something. All right, remember, strength looks different here on Strong Hands Reborn Dad.